Today, we are discussing business banking tips for MSMEs. And if you're like me and you're like, what, what does these letters actually mean? Stick around. I'll be right back and let you know.
Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, things changed. But things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card but only had a debit card.
Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive and survive and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing business banking tips for MSMEs. And if you're like me and you're like, what does all these letters actually mean? I'll explain it to you. It's micro, which is, that cook, water washer, that single person who does everything just to survive and push that idea. The small and medium enterprises in terms of you may have 1 or 2 people or you may have 10 people. So it's a, toss up in terms of what you fall under as a business owner. Today, I have the great privilege to talk to Natalya Rahamatula. She is the Resource Center Specialist at JMMB Bank in Trinidad and Tobago. She's a partner for MSME owners like you as you navigate entrepreneurship, because not even your family understand why you choose to do what you do, based on a true story. She also manages relationships by consistently monitoring, coaching, and developing the JMMB's group's clients to accelerate in their business growth. And she also has some insights into an accelerator program that we're going to cover on later. And finally, when she was a teenager, she gave us a little tidbit this morning. She represented Trinidad and Tobago in the Children's Olympics in golf. I mean, we're going to have to ask her about her handicap later. How are you today, Natalya?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I am keeping it inside. I don't know how it
like
is
all of us should be. Yeah.
Yes. Have you been able to work remotely, or are you doing some in, some out?
Yeah. So we've mostly been working remotely, and on the one-offs that we actually have paperwork, we go into the office, just to scan, print, and then head back out.
Well, this is the world we're living in now, and we're going to have to adapt with it. And in that same breath, let's have a conversation about entrepreneurship, because it's one thing that entrepreneurs know is the pivot, because in order for you to survive, you have to. And let's just get down to the meat of the matter. When it comes to when you are starting a business, let's go beyond the business idea. And you've started your business, you've pump money in it, time, hours. Based on your experience, because you have experience across the export space as well as the financial industry, what's the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs make?
For me, the biggest mistake that I see entrepreneurs making is that they don't take the steps to formalize your business early on, right? And I know it's a lot of people may say that, and they may say, but I need money to register the business. I need to, get things going. But At the same time, if you don't formalize your business, as in get it registered, get your business bank account open, take the time to do your business plan, you're really limiting the options you have, not only in terms of accessing your financing, but even if you were to access grant funding, if you don't take these steps to put those things in place early on, it limits your ability to access those things. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen MSMEs make.
It's interesting that you say that, because I recently had that conversation with my accountant, and we were discussing all these things as relates to, cash flow. And it's just like, as a business owner, I was like, get away.
I know.
And basically, you're telling me, Pauline, you have no choice. Good morning to Desiree. She's a shout out to her. She joins in all the time when we have lives. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting us. But going back to this idea, Natalya, of formalizing, what does that actually mean? Because I feel like there's a separation between somebody who's in the banking sector and somebody who has this very like misunderstood passion to just deliver an idea, and they can see the potential, but you, as in a financial space, you're like, no, stop. What does formalizing mean?
Formalizing for me means the first basic step: please register your business. A lot of people, they get wrapped up in, okay, I need my logo, I need my brand, I need my social media, and you don't register the business. And then when you actually have started operating and you go into legal affairs to get the company registered, this, the name is already taken, or there's some conflicts with the name, and then that has implications for the whole brand that you've built already. So in terms of formalizing, make sure that you get the business registered first. Also, in terms of formalizing, make sure that you keep a track of all your expenses, and all of the money that you're receiving from whatever your operations are. That is also very key. Regardless if it's written in a book or whether you have an Excel spreadsheet, please just keep a track of them. That will do a lot for you later on when you're preparing your accounts and the whole run of the mill things.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of the times when we talk about getting money, getting loans, even all these trendy conversations around entrepreneurship, they say
Right.
start with your family first and then go to financial institutions, but it doesn't really matter where you go, you still need this information, because it's
Correct.
almost like the fingerprint of your business.
Correct.
And when it comes to a proposal, you want to get support, maybe financial or mentorship, what are the key elements that businesses should be like, what should they include in that proposal?
Right. So in every proposal, I would say that there are 9 key elements that every business plan should have, right? And this would be your executive summary, your business description, your products or services section, depending on what your company does, the market, the section of your business plan that speaks to what's going on in the industry, the research and stuff like that, marketing and sales, management, operations, financials, and implementation. But specifically for those business owners who, are seeking financing or who would like to seek financing to grow their businesses later on, I would say the key elements that you need to focus on are really the executive summary, the management section, the operations section, as well as the financials, right? And I'll just drill down into why these are so important. So for the executive summary, this is really the section that provides readers or investors or your loan officers a brief but dynamic description of the company, of the key components of the business plan, right? Most times it's really the last section of the business plan that will be written, but a first-time reader should be be able to read the summary by itself and know exactly what the company does and know exactly what the business plan contains. So it's because it's the first thing that your investors or your loan officers are looking at when you're trying to access financing. It has to be strong and it has to be well written and to the point, right? And then in terms of the management section is meant to show your potential investors or loan officers that your business has a great management team to complement your business model or your concept, right? It's important to be honest in this section, highlight your accomplishments and your capabilities, and of course, mitigate any shortcomings or weaknesses that you have internally. This section would typically include things like your company organization, your management team, who they are, their experience, the management structure and their style, as well as the ownership structure of the company. Also, if you have a board of directors or a board of advisors, I would suggest that you highlight that in this section as well, because it would speak to the company's capabilities, right? In terms of the operations, now the operations section, that would outline how you run your business and how you are going to deliver value to your customers. So for this section, I usually like to tell my clients, I recommend clearly linking your operations with your marketing plan, right? And that's just to remain cohesive, because when operations and marketing are aligned, your marketing really understands your company's capabilities and what it takes to follow through on your value proposition, right? So things that I would say that you highlight in this section would be things like your operations strategy, the personnel that you have in your operations team, what your production process is like, if there are any legal requirements that have to be met in the environment that you're operating in, include that as well. Anything to do with inventory, your suppliers, and if you have credit policies with your suppliers, it would be helpful to include that in this section as well.
I want to just button a bit there because
Sure.
it's going to be a little controversial. We do it for the likes, okay? We do it for the likes. When it comes to this idea of inventory,
Right.
especially in the 21st century where we're living in a world that Facebook has become literally, almost like in our veins, uh, it's difficult to have a conversation in somebody who is in the financial industry who may not
Mm-hmm.
understand the tech. So you can't. I'm not able to come to you and say, okay, I have this machinery versus I
Right.
have this software.
Right.
What is the conversation that needs to be had to basically solidify or strengthen that proposal if the person's in the software space?
Well, for persons in the software space, and I understand that concern because that's something that I've been faced with many clients over the years, right? What it really comes down to, if you're in the tech space or if you're in the software space, is really justifying the need for this, especially if you're seeking financing for that software. Um, you need to explain to us, right? Because bankers, yes, we do have experience, but for some, in some areas, we may not have all the information. So you need to be able to clearly articulate your need to us for that software. You need to clearly articulate how this helps, how this impacts your business model, how it will impact your operations, maybe improve your efficiency. You need to present the clear picture to us, right? We have our experience, but I mean, the clearer that you could state these things to us, the better.
Okay, so it's a sales conversation because it's like you're selling yourself to somebody who may
Well,
not
that's
understand.
that's what the business plan is, right? The business plan is really about outlining what your company does, the different areas of your company, so that anybody who would not have had information about the industry, information about your company, they'll be able to read your business plan and have a clear understanding of what it is you do.
Great. So, if you're just joining us, guys, we're here talking about the business banking tips with Natalya from JMMB in Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to go on a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to have a little discussion around this idea of executive summary because I'm sensing it's somewhat like the elevator pitch. And as an entrepreneur myself, there's a lot to learn. So, I'll see you on the other side.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
Welcome back, guys, to Straight Off the Bat. Thank you for joining us today. Our show covers the need to revive and survive and adapt to the new normal. Today, we're discussing the business banking tips of MSMEs in Trinidad and Tobago, and you're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. Make sure to smash that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Shout out to the folks, Business Lifeline Limited. Good morning, hailing on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to head over to the comment section if you have any questions around, if you're an entrepreneur, need to find out some insight. We have access to our guest today, Natalya from JMMB, and she has a wealth of knowledge across the financial space, as well as, being a partner in an entrepreneurship world where you feel alone. Now is the time to ask questions, because I even fall guilty to this, because you're so gung-ho in this space, you don't stop to ask a question. And I think it's extremely important for that. So shout out to Natalya. How are you today?
I'm good. Ready to get the conversation going.
Awesome. And you did cover, if you guys are just joining us, she did cover some tips, and she mentioned executive summary, and it reminded me about, because there's this idea of a business plan. Growing up, you thought, you have to write to this business plan, and then you're like, what does that even mean? Is this like a story about my life? What do I actually choose to put on this piece of paper, metaphorically speaking, because you should be typing that out, to send it to a financial institution? And as it relates to that elevator pitch, what is the number one mistake you see in an executive summary?
The number one mistake I would say that I see in executive summaries is that they include a lot of information that isn't necessary. That really should not be included in that executive summary. There are different components within the business plan where you could really drill down into the different areas. Remember, the executive summary is really the first thing that your bankers, your loan officers, or your investors are going to read, right? It has to be short, it has to be to the point, and it has to have all of the pertinent information. So you need to mention who your business is, where you're located, what it is that you do, what is your offering, and then later on in the other components, so like your operations, your marketing, then you drill down into what your operation strategy may be, what your marketing strategy may be. The executive summary, that's your elevator pitch, as you rightly said. So we need to get all the pertinent information to who you are as a company and what you do.
I'm learning so much, because as much as I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years, it's still so important to be reminded and even learn new things, because you get, as I said, it's just like under everything. And it's very important for you to just kind of come up, breathe, and understand that these are the elements of what it means to own a business. Because when you have this, even now, I have friends like, oh, you're so lucky to own your own business. And I was like,
if they only knew.
I'm like sitting down at 10 o'clock in the morning in the night, like going through my bills and going through an Excel spreadsheet. It's just what are you talking about? And what setting up your business profile, because you may have an idea, you may have a potential audience, but what
Mhm.
actually does it mean to build your business profile?
So, before we get into that, I just want to be really clear on what a business profile is, right? So, a business profile it's really a general idea of what your business is about, and it provides a glimpse into your company's business plan. So, it's not a 5-page long document. It's just really kind of similar to the executive summary. It's really just meant to provide that glimpse into the business plan, right? So it's essentially a summary related to the business, all of its essential activities. And the truth and fact is that a powerful business plan can really help you to win your investors and boost your marketing. So it depends on what your business profile is being used for, right? So you may have a longer business profile that you would include, um, say, if you were preparing an investor profile, um, you would, and then you would have your shorter business profile that you would include maybe on your marketing collateral. So maybe your website, maybe in any presentations that you're doing. Or social media like LinkedIn. So the length of the profile and what is included really depends on what it's being used for. So that actually brings me to my 3 tips to build your company profile. So the first thing I would do, define your purpose. You need to know what the business profile is going to be used for. And like I said, it could be used for many different purposes. You could have the long version, you could have the short version, but you need to be really clear on what the purpose of the profile is and ensure that it remains aligned throughout the profile, right? So um, it also depends on where you're placing it as well, that you would utilize the longer profile versus the shorter profile, right? But always include, and this is tying into my next step, which is choose your content, right? So, and this should really be closely tied to the purpose. So depending if you were including your company profile in an portfolio profile, it would be longer and you would include different kinds of information. So you really want to be clear on what information you want to show. So regardless of your format, make sure that you clearly explain what the company is and what it does. It's always a nice touch to include your company's mission because that draws in your clients. Um, Also, feel free to use high quality photos. It doesn't have to be just words on a paper. You could include photos that represent the brand well. And you don't need to expose any private details in your company profile. So things like your financial reports and your operational details, it doesn't really need to be in your profile. Just keep focused on who you are as a company and what it is that you do. And then lastly, my last tip is don't forget your contact information. Complete contact information is absolutely necessary. So you want to make sure that you include your address, your phone number, your email. If you have social media, make sure you include that. If you have a website, make sure that you include that, because this is how your potential clients are going to reach you if they have any questions or if they need any information related to your business. It's also a good idea to add a call to action in your company profile at the end. So something like contact us for more information or visit our website to learn more about us is also a nice finishing touch.
You really hit the nail on the head there with defining your purpose. It's so interesting because we have a lot of access to the internet. It's easy to say I have this idea and I know that it's going to be successful, but defining your purpose is it feels more than just a financial discussion. It feels like the entire, purpose of, this is why, the why behind it. And for your experience across, not just the financial sector, but the export space, why is your purpose important to define?
So I would say your purpose is important to define, because if you don't know what you're doing, or you're not clear on what the company does, what the business is about, how are you going to relay that to others within the space? How are you going to relay that to your customers? How are you going to relay that to your loan officers, your grant funders, if you're gonna approach somebody for grant funding, your investors, so it's really important to be clear about what you do, how you do it, who you are, what are your values, what is your vision, in order to it really just helps you, it helps you to translate your message to your clients and to all your stakeholders.
And when it comes to, and I almost feel like this question is for me more than the audience, guys. Really up to you to go in the comments and ask the questions. But when it comes to this financial conversation, keeping your bills, Excel spreadsheet templates, and so forth, what piece of advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's just over it and just like, I can't be bothered, this is too much, I want to focus on sales? What would you tell them?
I would say that I understand your frustration, and I understand that it can be overwhelming, but it's also important, to keep a record of these things. And it can be difficult and overwhelming, especially if you're the sole person in your business and you have to juggle so many different roles. But it's really about time management and making sure that you prioritize the things that will help the business not only now but in the long run. And keeping financial records, keeping proper financial records, is something that not many MSMEs think about, but it's something that becomes important later on, even more important if you want to access finance, if you want to access equity from investors. So it's always better to make the time to put those things in place as soon as possible, rather than waiting till later on when you've brought in a whole lot of sales, but then you have no proper record to show what you've done, what you've spent, and that's not going to tell a very good story in terms of your financials to your stakeholders.
Yeah, and in addition to that, all the journal entries you have to make and backdating it is just, it's cumbersome, guys. It's cumbersome. and what are you in business for? As you said, the purpose, as much as we may have a grand idea as to the customers we're helping, if we want to be profitable, you have to have all this information. And it's interesting because you don't see these types of things covered in the Hollywood movies when you think about entrepreneurship. How how glamorous is sitting down going through bills?
It's not, but it's necessary.
Definitely. And you mentioned choosing your content. What does that mean when you are creating your business profile?
So when I say choose your content, so let's break it down a little further. Say you were pitching to an investor and you have 20 minutes to make your presentation, and you have to quickly cover what your company does, plans for the company, management, basically your whole business plan you have to cover in 20 minutes. So what is it that you're going to include in your company profile? Definitely your mission statement, definitely your vision statement, your values, who you are as a company, what you believe in. Definitely include, those would be the key things that I say that you include in your business profile. So it really depends on the end use of your company profile that you would choose to include different things. If you're using your company profile for an investor profile, and you want to attract equity investment, you need to be able to show, the different capabilities that your business has. Why is it lucrative? Why should this person invest in my business? If you're presenting it to a loans officer for debt financing, same thing. What makes my business so great, and what experience do I have? Because when you're looking at debt financing, loans officers are really interested in whether or not you could repay the debt that you're taking on, right? So it would really be dependent on the end use of the company profile.
It definitely sounds like you're telling a story
Yeah.
with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go on a short break. We have a question from Desiree as it relates to, is it necessary to show financial records when applying for financial assistance as an entrepreneur? We're going to answer that question right after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. We are Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive and survive and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing business banking tips for MSMEs. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. Trust me, I've looked. Be sure to like and follow us. We actually recently joined LinkedIn. Conversation is lit there, so head over there so you don't miss a live show, because we actually do set up an event page and you get the link directly sent to your inbox. Be sure to comment with any questions and we'll try our best to answer them today. Our guest is Natalya Rahamatula. She is the Resource Center Specialist at JMMB Bank in Trinidad and Tobago. She also manages the relationships by consistently monitoring, coaching, and developing the JMMB's group's clients to accelerate in their business growth. We actually have a few questions for her on the new JMMB Accelerator program, but that's coming a little bit later. Good morning, Natalya. How are you?
Hi. Good.
And I just want to sort of divert on the financial conversation for a bit and ask you, as someone who represented Trinidad and Tobago as a teenager in golf in the Youth Olympics, what's your opinion on the Olympics this year?
That may be a little controversial, but I mean,
we like it.
In terms of preparation is key, right? When it comes to these things, being a former athlete, and I speak for all athletes when I say the support that is given to us is sometimes, not as great as the other countries receive from their governments, So that's all I will say on that.
Completely agree. As somebody who played hockey for over a decade, I mean, it was part of my DNA. And then now I'm into triathlons. The amount of time and effort, it's a job. It's a job. And it's something that we could definitely make some money off of, because we have basically 20, like, all year round weather to train. So it'd be interesting if we actually were to put some funds into that. But I mean, maybe there's something to learn as an entrepreneur in that space as well, because you do have to put that effort in financially as well as an entrepreneur. You just can't be like, well, I'll sit down there and customers are going to come and everybody's going to support me. No, guys, that's not true.
Yes, preparation is key.
So important. Let's head over to Desiree's question about, is it necessary to show financial records when applying for financial assistance as an entrepreneur?
So definitely, it is really important, your financial records. And just to give a little insight on why it's so important, these financial statements, your financial records, actually provide a snapshot of your business's financial health at a particular point in time. So it would give insight into things like your performance, your operations, your cash flow, and just overall conditions into the business. So it will help your financial records. It helps not only your investors or your loan officers, but it really is meant to help you, the management, to evaluate and make suitable decisions, right? Because you want to make sure that you look at your historical performance and you compare it with your current performance to see, what tweaks could be made, right? And it would also assist, yourself, your team, as well as any analyst to predict future performance and growth of the small business. So it's actually really, really important when it comes to accessing financing, whether it be traditional debt or equity.
Yeah, it's, maybe beating a dead horse there, but it's definitely a story you're telling, may it be in numbers or, the story in terms of your potential growth. Desiree also has another question as it relates to investor. What is an investor profile?
So your investor profile, if you were to seek funding from an angel investor, or if you were to list on the stock exchange, your investor profile would be your presentation of who your company is and basically telling the story of your company to get people to invest in you. That's what the investor profile is really all about.
And as we're in that conversation around investment,
Mm-hmm.
at what point in time or what key sort of elements do you have to take into consideration when you are looking for financing? You have this conversation around debt financing for the purpose of expansion,
Mm-hmm.
but then you also have startup financing. So first of all, when do you have that discussion, to
Right.
say it's time to put in money? And then second of all, how do you decide who to ask that question to?
Right. So answering that question, you really have to be clear about where you're at in your business life cycle, right? So, depending on where you're at, you're going to be most suited to access different types of financing, right? As a startup, we know that, and when I say startup, I mean you've been in operation for less than 2 years, so you're relatively new. We know that it can be very difficult to access traditional debt financing. And this may be because your business is new to an industry, your business model is new, or you may not have the experience, the business experience or the history that is really required to assess your ability to repay or service your debt obligations, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't finance the business. There are other options available to you, right? So it really depends on where you're at in the business life cycle. And Pauline, if you would allow me, just to kind of drill down into that. Okay, so if you're a startup or if you're thinking of opening your own business, the first thing that I would say is save. And that sounds pretty simple, but save towards your business. Many people overlook it. But if you're able to save a significant portion of what you predict your funding needs to be, you're going to be in an even better position later on to access financing to grow the business. So when you've proven your business model, maybe when you've gained a little more experience in your market, that will put you in a better position to access financing. Also, in the startup phase, and you mentioned it, Pauline, approach your close friends and family, ask them to invest in your business. And this is really where having the clear business plan, the well-written, strong business plan, and the business profile is really going to assist you, because it's going to tell the story about who you are and what you do. And not only are those tools going to help you pitch to your family and your friends, it could also help you to pitch to angel investors as well, right? And I know many people may hear angel investor and they're asking, who is an angel investor? Where can I find them, right? So an angel investor is really someone who is highly experienced. They're high net worth individuals who will invest in your business for a percentage of, in exchange for a percentage of ownership in your company. And that could sound a little scary, giving up a little portion of your business. But the reality is angel investors have a lot more to offer rather than just equity, right? So because they have so many years of experience under their belts, they're also able to provide that guidance, provide that advice to your company in order to help it grow. Because of angel investors and who they are, they really want to maximize their return on investment. So what they'll do is they'll inject the capital that you need, in the early startup phase, and they will, help to grow the business, advise you for perhaps a 3 to 5 year period. It would be dependent on your arrangements with them, and then they would want to exit the business to regain their initial investment, and of course any additional return on their initial investment, right? It is considered to be more expensive in terms of the cost of financing because you're giving up a percentage of your company, but there are lots of benefits to be had from it. So don't shy away from that if it's something that you are interested in, and it's really good for those companies who may not have as much business experience, so those angel investors really come into handy there.
And it's interesting I talk about business experience because I find it so, I don't know, maybe because I haven't experienced it before, but this idea of giving a percentage of my business in exchange for funds and leadership and training and things like that, I don't see it as a big deal. It's
Yeah,
either that or you keep struggling by yourself.
exactly.
And when it comes to getting support financially from your friends and family, what is the key piece of advice you would give to an entrepreneur?
The key piece of advice I would give is to, even though it's your friends and family, it's really easy to get comfortable with, asking them to invest in your business. But try to think of them as if they were people that you didn't know, and don't leave any detail unturned. Make sure that you include all of the pertinent information that you would include if you were to go to a stranger, to ask them for financing.
And you mentioned when you spoke about, getting that access to people, especially who know more stuff about you, as well as uh, giving you advice and that mentorship. Can you share some insight into the JMMB's Accelerator, the new program for SMEs? Because I feel like that's in a supportive role. What is it exactly?
Sure. So the SME Resource Center Accelerator program is a 2 year program, right? So, and we're doing it in collaboration with the University of Technology out of Jamaica. And the program is open to both Jamaica and JMMB clients as well as Trinidad and Tobago clients, right? Even if you're not a client, I would still advise that you send in your application form. Now, over the 2 year period, what we're going to do is we're going to take your business through a series of training workshops. And it's not just, you log in for an hour or two and you get your information and then nothing happens. It's really meant to provide you with your best business practices being implemented now, and make sure that you implement it into your business. So we also have follow-up sessions following those trainings to make sure that you're actually using the information that you learned. You would also be assigned a mentor throughout the 2 year program, and you have your quarterly coaching sessions with them. You would also have access to our quarterly CEO roundtables. And what that is really just a networking opportunity for all the SMEs within the program. So whether you're Jamaican MSME, whether you're TT MSME, you have access to that program, and you're going to be able to meet the other CEOs, the other business owners, and trade ideas, have discussions, learn from them, hear about what's happening in this space. And, you get your assistance with your financial statements. If you don't understand your financial statements, you're going to get assistance with that. If you don't understand your business plan, if you don't know how to put it together, if you need to polish it up, your business plan, your marketing plan, your export plan, those are things that you're going to get help with through the Accelerator program.
It sounds like a great program that will allow you to have support and accountability, because accountability is so important. Is there a cost for this program?
It's absolutely free. Absolutely free.
Best price. All right, sounds great. I have a question here from YouTube. How can mentors join the SME Accelerator program?
So the mentors that are within the Accelerator program are actually internal to the SME Resource Center and UTech. So it's not that we're looking at bringing on mentors. It's more of the mentees that we're looking at. But I mean, feel free to reach out to us. Maybe there are other ways that we could partner,
Great, thanks for that. I think I want to call that an exclusive on the Straight Off the Bat show. We have insight into the Accelerator program by the JMMB group, which is really a great way to access not just accountability and support, but it's also in collaboration with Jamaica. And that kind of ties back into some questions I have about export, because you do have that background experience. So we're going to ask a few questions right after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Straight Off the Bat show it's a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing business banking tips for MSMEs, which stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else, so be sure to like and follow us. You can see the little subscribe. You could also slide into the comments. All the links are there for you to follow us. And be sure to comment with any questions you have. We'll make sure to answer them as much as we can today. Today, our guest is Natalya. She is the Resource Center Specialist at JMMB Bank in Trinidad and Tobago, and she also manages the relationships by consistently monitoring, coaching, and developing the JMMB Group's clients to accelerating their business growth. And if you missed it earlier, we did cover the Accelerator program from JMMB, so you'll have to wait till we end at 11 and then rewind, but it's worth checking out, don't worry. Good morning to Natalya. She is somebody who plays golf. Do you still play golf, by the way?
On and off. Not as often as I would like, but yeah. It's something that I've been doing it since I was 7, right? So it's something hard to. It's like you said about your hockey. It's in your blood, right? So.
And kudos to you, because I started training for triathlons, which is usually about 3-4 hour training sessions. Golf is way longer. How often?
Well,
how long?
Like 4.5 hours. It's not a big deal.
I hope you put on that sunblock.
Yeah.
That is a lot, and it's kudos to you. What was the biggest takeaway you learned from playing golf, especially at such a young age, playing sports from since 7? What was that, like in terms of where you are today? How did that help you?
It really helped me in terms of mental strength, I would say. And even as I've moved into, throughout my professional life, having that mental strength, and when you're faced with challenges, knowing that, this is something that I could do. I have it within me. I just need to execute. That is something that's a big lesson that I learned early on, and it's really helped me throughout my career.
Ditto for me as well in sports, because I
Mm-hmm.
do these long races that covers, like 70 miles, and my friends are like, why? And I'm just like, why
Yeah,
not?
same question for you. Why?
And it relates to entrepreneurship. They're like, why don't you just get a stable job? Like, what does that mean?
Right.
And when it comes to, okay, so we have a question. I mean, before I get into the export conversation, we have another question from Desiree.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to know, what are the key differences between a business profile and investor profile? Is there any?
So the the business profile and the investor profile, they're similar, but the end use is different. So it would really come down to, um, what information are you trying to portray? What story are you trying to tell to your investors versus if you were using your company profile, your business profile for debt financing. So it really depends. It comes back to your purpose. What is the purpose of the company profile? And then you include the information that you would like to relay to either your loans officer, or your investors who you're trying to bring on board. Oh, not hearing you, Pauline. New normal.
That muted life. It is what it is. And I was all there praising Desiree for the questions, and she didn't hear anything I said. Desiree, thank you so much. Your questions do help everybody when we are doing these live sessions, because sometimes people are a little fearful of asking the questions. Now, when it comes to business banking tips, I want to find out, you were in an export space before.
Mm-hmm.
Do Does the financial industry treat the export customer, like if you have a business that is catered towards external customers versus local customers, is that treated differently from a financial perspective in terms of loans and support like that?
So, no, it's not treated differently. Um, at the end of the day, it really depends on, especially if you're trying to access debt financing, it really depends on your your experience, your history in terms of your credit history, whether you're trying to get a secured or unsecured facility, that would come into play. It would really depend on your offering, your business model. How lucrative is it? Is it going to be able to sustain you? Are you going to be able to repay your obligations if you take on that debt? If you're approved for that debt, how are you going to service it? So those are the things that bankers typically look at when making the decision whether or not we should approve financing.
And with that debt financing, like what debt financing for growth, can you, for in as much as layman terms as possible, explain what exactly that is? Because I think we take for granted that people know what that means, and I genuinely actually I'm still not sure. So can you just put on your teacher cap and let us know?
No problem. So when it comes to debt financing, that is really where you go to a financial institution and you would ask them for a loan. That's what debt financing is. It's a loan, right? But there are a couple different options that you have, especially when it comes to financing your business's growth, right? And using debt financing. So, putting on my teacher hat, secured versus unsecured loans. What is that? So a secured loan is a loan that is really backed by collateral. What is collateral? collateral is any kind of financial asset that you own. So in the event that you're not able to repay your loan or service your loan, the bank can take the collateral as payment, right? So common examples of secured facilities would include things like mortgages or your car loans, right? And an unsecured loan would require no collateral, but since there's no collateral, financial institutions would approve these types of loans based in large part on your credit history, your credit score, and with how you've been repaying your past debts, right? And this of course would have some effect on the type of interest rate that you would have to pay on these types of loans. Unsecured loans may have higher interest rates than secured loans, but not always. It's dependent on the situation. And then in terms of financing for growth, there are also working capital loans. So what is a working capital loan? Working capital is it's a loan for a short to medium term, and it's really designed to boost cash in the business to go after new opportunities. So most times the size of the loan you can access would depend on whether the facility is secured or unsecured, like I said before. The secured working capital facilities will require assets as collateral, so you may be a little bit restricted in terms of the assets you have available to you. While it's possible to get the unsecured working capital loans, for those your credit rating will be more important, and oftentimes you have to provide a personal guarantee. So that's, there are other products like an overdraft and receivables factoring financing. So it really depends on what you need the financing for. And that's at JMMB, that's what we do, right? We don't believe in providing cookie cutter solutions. We really look at your business and see what your needs are, and then provide you with the solution most appropriate.
Thank you so much for putting on a teacher's hat and letting us know. It's so important because sometimes we use a lot of words that is just very specific to our industry, and a lot of us don't understand. And some of us don't want to say that we don't understand. And I'm one of the first person to be like, I don't understand. So I hope for those who are watching this can definitely understand what that means and how to use those terminologies. And if you are not too clear, don't worry, head over to the LinkedIn page, because we do blogs after these live sessions and we explain further what was discussed in these sessions. Now, Chantel Griffith is definitely in my head, Chantel, because I was going to ask the same question. Chantel wants to know how we can get into contact with the JMMB SME Resource Center to assist. I guess, be part of it?
Yeah, sure. So, all you really need to become a part of the Resource Center is a business bank account with us. And you could reach out to us at SMEresourcecenter@jmmb.com. And we will be more than happy to help you through the process.
Would it be okay for the person to yes, the links are in the comments, by the way, guys, so you can head over there to access it. But if they have any questions, would it be okay for them to head to the JMMB Trinidad and Tobago Facebook page?
Sure. Yeah, you could find us on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We also have YouTube pages where we have some recordings of past sessions that we've had on there. So feel free to check that out. We are also on Instagram. So yeah, we're on all the platforms. So check us out.
Great. So any final words for entrepreneurs out there? Because I saw the most recent doom and gloom in the paper with a lot of businesses closing and folks are grappling with the world we're living in now. What key piece of advice would you tell an entrepreneur right now?
My key piece of advice would be to be calm throughout all the chaos. It's not doom and gloom. If you have your financial advisors on board, speak to them, try to figure out the best way forward. Yes, things will be tough now, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. I mean, closing your business is a huge step. So make sure that you leverage the relationships that you have with any financial advisors, your relationships with your bankers, and try to chart a way through this period. It's tough now, but there is hope, and things will get better.
Thank you so much. And we'll end on that very positive note from Natalya. Thanks again to Natalya Rahamatula for joining us today and sharing business banking tips for MSMEs. Head over to their JMMB Trinidad and Tobago Facebook page to inquire about the Accelerator program. Don't forget to put don't forget to check the links in the comments if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. We did put the links to the JMMB Accelerator program so you could sign up directly there. And be sure to join us on the 26th of this month at the same time, same place, for our next conversation on how to identify business opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago with our guest, Nicole Joseph Cupid. Oh, another Joseph. Hey. She's the owner of and CEO of Business Lifeline. And tap in the link in the comments below. Again, everything I discuss will be in the comments, so just scroll through. You can figure it out. And always be sure to like and follow our page on Facebook. Don't forget to join us on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. We here. Thank you for joining us today, and I will see you on the 26th. Bye, guys.
Bye.